Alright, what is going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about HEX and asking the question of what happens after 25-cent HEX. So this video is titled anywhere from 25-cent HEX. Now what comes next? Any of those good titles that hit those SEO keywords. Let's continue on with the HEX price. This is your historical V1 chart just so you can experience the entire history of the HEX price in one piece, right? This shows you its history from the initial dip to that initial run up to the March 2020 crash of all markets, Bitcoin, S&P, even Ethereum, right? It went all the way down to like $80. Everything, basically everything crashed. And then we ran up harder than pretty much anything. At this point is when HEX started outperforming all of crypto, even with this consolidation period of time. And then this run up prior to big payday, we had our crash. And ever since this point in time right here, we can draw a vertical line and say our inflation dynamics changed completely. And after our inflation dynamics changed completely, it's been nothing but an uptrend. And if we show this on a simple line chart, you can see that that is the case, right? We had our low right here, our post big payday low, then we had a nice bull flag, right? Then we moved back up, broke up out of the bull flag, as bull flags generally tend to break, had a higher low, and we've just been on a steady uptrend, right? Steady uptrend. So what can happen from here? Well, uptrends are uptrends until they're not, right? And currently we're in an uptrend. So I will continue to say that we'll go up until that changes, right? If that changes. And yeah, this is a historical pattern, but you have to ask, right? Like how high can we go? Because back here, no one really expected a move like this, right? No one really expected us to break above all-time highs, have this sort of few week lull, and then just explode up 10x. Few people expected that. Right, what did we do now? Well, we broke above our previous 21-cent high, right? And we haven't gone up a vast amount above 21 cents. Like, don't get me wrong, this is amazing that we're sitting at 26, 27 cents right now and just chilling there. But it almost reminds me of something like this, right? Where you had a run up, dip, and then after your second run up, you just kind of hung out above all-time highs. So it's not a clear analogy, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, I guess something like this. That's a really rough way. Like, it's not the exact same, right? But we are just hanging out above all-time highs is what I'm trying to say. That's a very, very sloppy pattern. I think it looks something like this. And something that better illustrates exactly what I'm trying to say is on LookIntoHex.com. If you check out the regression rainbow, this is really what I'm trying to say, where price is currently right beneath green, right? It's right beneath our midline regression, right? This is about what is it? About 5x, above our red curve, give or take a few x, about 5x above it, and we're almost there, right? You can more clearly see it on this chart. And again, we're tracking ETH super nicely. It's still holding, right? And ETH just continued to go up against its regression rainbow back in this time. So you could argue, well, we're in that part of the cycle now and eyeballing the $2 region. And remember, there are other coins that have done this, that have had the unit bias of just a few pennies, like ADA and Matic. They were just a couple pennies, and in anywhere from, it was 5 months for Matic, it was about 14 months for ADA, but they ran up from about 2 pennies all the way up to about $3. So, I mean, HEX was at 2 pennies, I believe, like not that long ago, like 90 or 100 days ago. So it could repeat something like that and just have a really viral run up into these regions. So what happens after 25 cents? Well, we've said that we've looked at a bull flag, for example. If you guys recall, I will do it for you guys again here and say that we were looking at this flag right here. right, this move. Let's get rid of these extensions to just look at the magnitude of the flag itself. And then we had our falling parallel channel, right? So we'll draw that too. Something like this, right? And so you say, well, when we break, we'd have a target of about, what do we say? About 28 cents, right? Yeah, we were calling that 27, 28 cents. So I was saying that was the lower bound. Yeah, our bull flag. But remember, HEX has doubled its technical target multiple times when we've had either bull flags or ascending triangles, and we've pointed them out plenty of times. One of them was back here, right? The target for this ascending triangle was around this level over here, 0.007, and it doubled all the way to 0.014. So that's one example. There's probably one in previous history as well, at some point in time. But another significant one was this bull flag over here, right? This bull flag, we can actually show you what happened. That's the falling parallel channel that happened after this pole right here, right? And if we show where this one was pointing at, it was pointing at the 3 cent level. And we doubled that and went all the way to 6 cents, and we did it way quicker than this anticipated us to even hit 3 cents. So again, this bull flag, this ascending triangle back here, called for this level, it doubled it. This bull flag called for this level, HEX doubled it. I believe it happened a second time. If you look at, all right, we'll just move this one to accommodate. But if you look at this one, this is more of an ascending triangle, so you'd have to draw that one differently. How do you do triangles? Triangle pattern, I believe. A, B, C, something like that. I don't know how to do triangles on this software. I won't even attempt to do that actually. Here, the point is when it broke this top right here, right? When it broke this top, if you you just paste it at the point of breakout. The technical target was 12 cents, and I said, hey, we could reach anywhere from 12 to 24 cents. So it just kind of keeps on doubling its technical targets every single time. I don't know why it keeps on doing that. Not saying it'll continue doing that, but it has. So again, it happened from back here, 0.7 of a penny to 1.4 pennies. It happened over here from 3 pennies to 6 pennies. It happened over here from 12 pennies to 24 pennies. And now what we're saying is, well, if our technical target is 27 cents, it could happen again and give you a range of 27 to 54 cents. So that is what we are saying now, that's where we could be headed after 25 cents. All right, HEX likes to double for some reason. And that would coincide with something like this, right? Where 50 cents currently is, 55, for example, 58 in mid-September is cyan. So we would be over here. And even if we reached it in late September, we would still be tracking this ETH fractal. And then I would be even more bullish and say we might be headed into this sort of really, really overheated part of the cycle, right? So I'll continue to keep you updated. We'll look at a bunch of different charts, such as our quarterly ROI. Let's reload this website. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, look at where HEX is right now. Our Q3 2021 is this pink curve, and it looks like we just crossed above an average quarter, and it looks like we are currently the second most performative quarter to date, right? First was Q2 of 2020, which was already coming down from its sort of local peak at the time and ended up even lower, about 2x lower. But look at the current one. It's tracking right above average and onto this purple curve kind of nicely, where you see this purple curve end up at about 4.615x from the beginning of the quarter, which I did the math on this, and again, it would put HEX closer to about 40 cents if it reached and tracked, for example, this purple and red curve perfectly, and this upper bound is about 60 cents, but that's not to say that it can't cross above these levels and give you higher levels above 60 cents. then again, even if we reached 55 cents or 60 cents by late September, it would be right on track right here. And that would coincide with our bull flag targets, and it would coincide with our ETH extension from its fit fractal. So, I mean, there are a bunch of models that are kind of converging. We updated the heat maps today. This one specifically, have to do this one sort of off-chain, so to speak. This one right here specifically, just this chart, and this one too, actually. These visual heat maps. That's one of the reasons they're not interactive is because I have to do them on Python, exporting data manually, but you can get a visual representation, right? A quantitative representation of these colors real-time daily with the risk metrics. They're basically the same thing, right? We're just assigning colors to, for example, this one. It's basically the same chart without the colors and just the actual numbers that are used to actually represent the heat map, if that makes sense. So we're definitely just at below 0.3, where we've bubbled up as high as 1 on this. We've had bubbles as low as 0.44, 0.38, 0.36, one over here about a 0.3, 0.25. Currently we are popping our head up. This looks interesting. It almost looks like a bull flag. I know you can't do traditional TA on something like this, but it is interesting to see this sort of bull flag formation on top of previous, what you could call resistance. Like, it's interesting to see this peak here, 0.29, kind of support here. This peak here, 0.25, sort of support over here, 0.24. This peak over here, 0.22, support now. So like each one of these peaks have been supports and bounces. That's kind of interesting. That's interesting, yeah. So I don't know. We'll continue to keep you updated on this. It's putting us just in the light green, which we've seen. We've been at this level before, for example, a 10x move, which again makes me think, well, we've just hung out above previous, what I was talking about earlier, right? When we just kind of hung out above all-time highs right here before blasting off. Maybe it's something like that where we'll have to zoom out in the future. We were just hanging out around all-time highs over here, and then it just 10x's out of nowhere, right? No one would expect something like that. When you zoom out, it becomes something like this. I mean, who knows, man? If you take a bars pattern, it would look something like this, right? Just out of the blue, you see virality kick in, and you end up with a chart that looks like this. $2 late September. I mean, who knows? Anything can happen. That would be the most bullish because the regression rainbow doesn't hit $2 on pink until October 7th, right? If you scroll to October 7th, you see that that's when it reaches $1.997. So effectively $2 October 7th or 8th. So I guess you could say that's my most bullish prediction as to how soon we could reach those levels. Similar to, again, a coin like ADA or Matic, which went from just a couple pennies to multiple dollars very, very quickly. 5 to 14 months respectively. So we have precedent of coins that have done it, right, where it's actually happened. We have metrics that say we still have a long way to go potentially if we're to have a similar bubble like this, which we already have had. So we have precedent in other coins. In the coin we're looking at itself, right, a bunch of metrics that point up. The fact that we're overperforming ETH historically or overperforming Bitcoin historically. I mean, we are just crushing all the competition. We've basically been on an uptrend on this index where, if you don't understand what this index is, it's basically mapping just the relativity, right? So we're taking HEX ROI divided by Bitcoin ROI. So it's just like which one's doing better at any given moment across a certain threshold. And that threshold is mathematically just this one level. So you can see that this region over here was when HEX was underperforming historically. So right here was underneath. And then you saw it had its bubble above, right? It went above. And that corresponded to this. And this huge bubble beneath was just this, where historically speaking, Bitcoin bubbled above where HEX was historically relative to its launch. And yeah, ever since Big Payday, you can see that it's only been an uptrend on the performance index, which is really, really cool. Yeah, look at that. Just an uptrend. That's nuts. That's really cool to see. So yeah, just a pure uptrend. And the reason I bring up these two charts is because you can plot them all three together. I've only shared this once on a live stream at the end of the live stream, and I decided that it was probably a good time to include it in a video like this one, where you can see HEX versus ETH versus BTC, all of them on the same chart to show just the absolute race that each is kind of presented in its own time frame. I guess I could also align them on when they actually launch. That would be kind of cool, right? Because then they would all basically be right aligned. I basically this is a left aligned ROI from launch. You've left aligned to day one. If you right aligned to the present day, then you would have all the charts basically right aligned. And for example, this would be right here, and this would be right here, and you can see real time kind of how they're outperforming relative to each other. So I might do that one, but this one speaks volumes because it shows the peaks that we could be eyeballing, right? All you have to do is look at the heights of, for example, this Ethereum peak, this Bitcoin peak, and this Bitcoin peak in the coming months and years to get an idea of where we could be headed, right? This green peak right here, the height of this Ethereum peak, when Ethereum reached about $1,600 in early 2018, January 2018. This corresponds to if HEX reached a peak of the same height, and it's doing everything sooner, so that it's pointing towards that direction. We're eyeballing it. It would correspond to about a 40-cent HEX. Now, if it reached this peak that Bitcoin reached when it reached about $200 for the first time, $150 to $200, it corresponds to a $1.30 HEX, right? If we're eyeballing that height. And if we're eyeballing this next height when Bitcoin reached $1,200 for the first time in history, then we're talking about a ROI from launch on HEX that would correspond to a $7 HEX. So these next peaks that we're eyeballing that range anywhere from day 92 relative to now, that's like 9 months, right? All the way to this peak over here, which is about almost 600 days away. So about a year and a half ish. So what do we say, 9 months to 18 months? These peaks are fair game, if not sooner, since HEX seems to be doing things quicker, right? If we give it a fair offset of what it's actually performing, right? A full, like, nice 250-day offset. That's a lot. That's like 8 months. So we're talking, if you're super bullish, that 9 to 18 months could be offset to like 1 to 10 months, right? So wide range, anywhere from now in the next year and a half, we could be eyeballing these peaks of 40 cents, $1.30, or $7. And I'm talking about, end of this year or end of next year. That's just what these charts are kind of saying, if that makes sense. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, I promise, but I just look at what other coins have done historically, and I'm not even being super bullish and saying, what if we look at this peak? Because this did take Bitcoin, 8 years to be fair, so that would be a hyper bullish scenario. I guess we could have fun. What's that number? 230,000. You'd have to divide it by like 13,000. So you could round to like 20. I'm talking 20x above that $7 prediction. Yeah, so this is when we're getting into like $100 HEX, this peak over here, the 20K peak of December 2017. Right, that's when we get into the $100 and above HEX. So that's when we're talking about HEX outperforming Bitcoin's lifetime ROI, which that might take time to play out, right? That might take time to play out, but until then, we have these peaks to look forward to potentially. And again, I repeat, these are 40 cents, $1.30, or $7, and they can happen anywhere from the next 1 to 18 months. If you condense that window down, do so symmetrically, I guess. And so you're talking about like 6 to 12 months potentially. If you're more conservative, again, maybe 18 months. But that's all I'll say in this video. I mean, just look at the price chart, man. We're at 27 cents on V1. That's obviously more illiquid. We're actually at 26.2 cents on V2, it looks like. But then again, it's a nice consolidation above previous all-time highs like we did over here. Had a nice flag over here. This could be just another flag. But we'll have to keep updated and see what it actually is, right? We also have a cool liquidity dashboard here that I don't think anyone else in the world has, to be honest, because you're actually able to input a certain amount of money on this chart, and it tells you what the hex price will do and what the final hex liquidity, like available coins, will be. So this just goes to show that there will always be a hex reserve. I feel like Johnny Chaos will like this a lot because it amplifies that point that whatever number you put in here on input, and I'll zoom in for you, you will still have some hex liquidity. So for example, if someone input $100 million, can you guys see that? I hope so. If someone input $100 million, then with the current price of about 26 cents, you would end up with a final hex price of about $9.30, with the final hex liquidity being about 13 million coins left, where currently there are about 77 million coins. So it just goes to show there will always be coins left. It's just that this order will get really, really big slippage, and the ratio would just be, there's about $20 million of liquidity now on the ask side, I believe, right over here. And so if you add 100 to 20, you just get 120 million. So you have $120 million backing only about, let's just say 12 million hex or so. So that's a ratio of 10. 120 over 12 is just 10. And so you end up with about $10 hex because AMMs just work via ratios. So I plugged in the correct numbers for these pools, both V2 and V3 respectively, because they are the deepest liquidity pools for hex in the world. Each takes up about half of the entire liquidity for hex. As you can see outlined here, V2 about 48%, V3 about 52%, respectively about 26 and $28 million in each protocol. And then you can see here the distribution of USDC to ETH liquidity, which is mainly backed by USDC. And so Hex mainly goes up and down if people buy or sell it with USDC, and it doesn't really care. Well, it only cares about 17% about what something like Ethereum does, which is carried by, let's say, something like Bitcoin. So it does have that feature of the general traditional crypto volatility, but to a lesser degree than most cryptos, which is good in a bear market and probably bad in a bull market, right? If things started getting really, really, really heated and bullish again, a fresh new bull cycle, it might make sense for liquidity providers to transition, if they hold Hex, to transition their liquidity from something like USDC to ETH. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I just think this calculator is pretty cool because it allows you to not only input a certain amount of dollars and end up with a certain amount of final hex price and final liquidity, but you can also ask yourself, well, if I want a certain price of hex, what's the input? So you can go the other way and input a final hex price. So if you want hex to be $2.01, right, like Hexa does, then we're looking at a ratio of this, about 7.7, and therefore a required input of about $35 million. And you can double check this above here, right? If you say 35, right, a little beneath, then yeah, we're almost to, yep, it looks about right? You can double check this, similar multiple. You can even get more accurate with it here, right? 35, 715. You can see that it will approach the correct value. There you go. We didn't even need those last three. There you go, $2.01 with a $35.7 million input, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so just to give you an idea that one side will never be drained. Let's say Elon Musk had put his 1.5 billion into Hex instead of BTC. Then we're talking about a final Hex price of about $1,500, but there would still be 1 million coins in the pool potentially. They would just be really, really expensive, right? $1,500 Hex, that would be very, very expensive. And so just 1 million coins in the pool, backed by about $1.5 billion, you just divide, right? 1.5 billion over about 1 million, and you end up with about 1,500. So that becomes the new Hex price. And so, no matter how much input in USDC you put in, you're always going to have some reserves, as you know, you can call it, of HEX, you know, being backed by just a large amount of USDC. It'll never approach zero. And you can even get more drastic with it and say, all right, what if you want to put in 10x that? You have 10 billionaires putting in 1.5B and you end up with 15B. Again, you end up with 6-figure HEX at about $145,000. But you still end up with coins, right? Still 100,000 coins, which is a lot because each one is worth 145K, right? So 100K coins becomes a lot. Being backed by 15 billion becomes worth this. So that's just kind of an idea, a little crash course, right? A little visual crash course on how automated market makers actually work, right? We got a little drastic there, but those are the numbers that, you know, you could see in the far future when you actually have multiple billionaires actually putting money into a Uniswap pool, which, you know, a guy can dream, but hey, this is a cool calculator, so I wanted to share it with you guys, and it'd be cool to make this available. Yeah, it'd be cool to make this available to people, right? So I just wanted to share these charts with you, but this is a longer video than I anticipated. No wonder I'm getting a little tired of talking here, but yeah, those are our targets, right? We're talking potentially 27 to 55 cents, or even higher, potentially dollars, if we start breaking out and repeating a fractal like we did back here. But we'll also keep up to date with other charts to know when we're overheated or on track, like our quarterly ROI, heat maps, and so on, which you can find on LookIntoHex.com. Appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you like this kind of hybrid quantitative and technical analysis on HEX. Definitely share this video if you found value, think someone else will find value out of it as well. Comment down below what you think the HEX price is going to do. Do you think we're going to 2x our technical target as we tend to? So what, 55 cents incoming? But that's your video. Excuse the lack of a video yesterday. I was battling OBS, but we'll figure things out to give you that constant stream of content. And yeah, I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.